The Parkinsons podcast is brought to you by the Phinney Foundation and brings you the stories, wisdom, and expertise of people living with Parkinson's, care partners, and Parkinson's professionals. In this episode, we chat with Sidney Collin, the inventor of NexStride, a device transforming mobility for people with Parkinson's. Join us as Sidney shares the journey from idea to creation, offering insights about our innovative solution and overarching mission to empower people with confidence and independence. Welcome, everybody, to the Parkinsons podcast. My name is Sia Euros, and I'm your host here at the Phinney Foundation. Really happy to have our guest here today, Sidney Collin, who is the inventor of NexStride, which is a device that helps people with Parkinson's to walk. So just really glad to have you here today, Sidney. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure, happy to. My background is in biomedical engineering, and I have a research background in computational neuroscience. So I did some really interesting research in brain-computer interfacing, and that's how I actually got into the Parkinson's world in the first place, was doing research in deep brain stimulation for people with Parkinson's. Then, started my company, Dairo Devices, with my co-founder, and have been running that company ever since. I'm also heavily involved in the Parkinson's space still. I'm on the board of a regional organization called Capital Area Parkinson Society, and I run a health education focused support group here in Austin. So that has been really fun.
What inspired the development of NexStride?
So I actually built it for this veteran named Jack Brill. So he lives with Parkinson's disease, and he suffers from this mobility symptom called freezing of gait that stopped him from being able to walk around the way that he wanted to and live the way that he wanted to. And so he actually came to me when I was studying biomedical engineering at Cal Poly. And he said, I know that there are these visual and auditory cues that work to help overcome freezing of gait because I use them with my physical therapist in the physical therapy clinic. And I can walk around great in physical therapy, but when I come home, I'm unable to go to the bathroom by myself, and I'm unable to go on a walk with my wife, Sandy, to be able to live my life the way that I want to. So is there any way that you can help me create this product that takes those cues that I know work and makes them portable so that I can attach them onto my walker or my cane? He had different canes and walkers that he would use at different times. So it was really important that it could attach onto anything. So that's actually how the whole company got started. It was really just a side project that I did to help Jack. It all started with Jack. And Jack's the one, that was the beginning story. I made this device for him. I stayed in San Luis Obispo. That's where Cal Poly is. I stayed in San Luis Obispo for the summer, and I built him a prototype. And by the end of the summer, I was able to give him something that I could see the difference between him being able to walk with it and being completely stuck without it. And it was so crazy to see that drastic change for him. And he's the one that actually brought me to a Parkinson's support group, a local Parkinson's support group in San Luis Obispo, where I met 20 or 30 other people who also had freezing of gait and had no effective solution to help them overcome it. And I remember, those people, I went to a support group with him. He showed off the technology, told everybody about what we were doing and working on together. And I remember those 15, 20 other people coming up to me one by one saying, hi, my name's so-and-so. I also have freezing of gait and have no effective solution. When do I get my prototype? And that's when I realized, okay, there's a lot more people out there that need this. And if I don't do it, no one else is going to. And it was so ridiculous to me, just unfathomable that something so simple, so well known to be effective, didn't exist in the world already. There's over 100 peer-reviewed articles that have been published. At the time that I started this company, there's over 100 peer-reviewed articles that have been published showing the efficacy of visual and auditory cues in improving freezing of gait for people with Parkinson's. So it is super well known that these work. It's just a question of how do we make it available to people.
Can you explain more about what freezing of gait is and what happens for people living with Parkinson's?
So freezing of gait is one of the most common and one of the most debilitating symptoms of Parkinson's disease. So there's a lot of different kind of numbers out there in terms of how many people with Parkinson's experience freezing of gait. The most common research that I've seen says that it's about 60% of people who currently have Parkinson's, 60% of people who have Parkinson's currently live with freezing of gait, and about 80% will eventually experience some sort of freezing of gait in their experience of Parkinson's over their lifetime. And what happens is, the way that Jack would describe it is feeling like his feet were suddenly glued to the floor or stuck in a box of cement. And this could happen. There's different instigators of freezing of gait. This can happen when you're walking through a doorway. This can happen when you're going into an elevator. That was a really common one that I would hear. It can happen when you're changing terrain. So if you're going from like a hardwood floor to a carpet is an example of changing terrain. If you're going from cement to grass, that's an example of changing terrain. So that sort of like thresholds can be an instigator. There's also internal triggers for freezing of gait. So anxiety is a big one. I used to work with somebody that every time, he was crossing the street, if somebody said, hurry up, get to the other side, he would immediately freeze. It's just that kind of anxiety, that fear can trigger freezing of gait. And what we've seen in terms of what's actually happening in the brain. So we kind of talked about the way that people describe it, right? But the medical definition of freezing of gait is a sudden onset of immobility. And the most accepted theory of what's happening here is in the brain. Most people know that the symptoms of Parkinson's are created because of this lack of dopamine in the brain. Because of that lack of dopamine, there's a certain part of the brain called basal ganglia that usually when you are sending signals to initiate movement, those signals go through the basal ganglia. However, for people who experience freezing of gait, what we think is happening is when those signals are being sent, because of lack of dopamine in the brain, the basal ganglia is having a hard time processing those signals, and the signals don't actually get to the motor neurons that are activating your muscles. And so what we can do is when we take these visual and auditory cues, we can actually activate the goal-oriented neural pathways in the brain instead of the automatic neural pathways in the brain, and allow someone to be able to restore that mobility to initiate that walking using a different part of the brain. So let me just say, I know that was a lot of like brain nerd stuff and vocabulary. So let me just simplify it and say we're essentially saying, okay, we can activate the same movement using a goal-oriented part of the brain versus an automatic part of the brain.
So let's say like in a physical therapy session, like what kinds of things are they doing to assist with this?
Great question. So a lot of times in physical therapy, I know physical therapists will put on marching music. That's auditory cues. They'll put on a metronome themselves. That's another example of auditory cues. I've seen physical therapists put down like a rope ladder and have people step through the rope ladder. That's visual cueing. There's also, putting down the little circles that are different colors and having people step on those. That's another example of visual cueing. There's also internal cueing that you can do. I was on a webinar with Dr. Sarah King, who's a physical therapist, doctor in physical therapy here in Austin. She does a great job with helping people with internal cueing. She has this system called the 5 S's that kind of helps you restart your walking and kind of reboot yourself in a way to be able to overcome that freezing. So those are all kind of examples of what your therapist or physical therapist that you might be working with that will use cueing, sensory cueing, to reduce freezing of gait.
I've heard of people using songs, they have a song that they bring up in their mind and that will help them to start walking, and like a music therapy I've heard can help with this.
So that falls under the bucket of rhythmic auditory stimulation, which is like both music and metronome. So the metronome is a version of that. But yeah, Jack loved music. So on the first device that we made for him, actually it had an MP3 player on it. And so he actually had I think it was 10 songs that we put on there, and he could go through those 10 songs and he would sing them as he would walk. And that had a huge impact on his gait. But as we brought the device out to market, we realized people don't generally want their cane singing out loud. So we took that out and just made it a metronome.
So can you explain the core functionality of NexStride and how it assists people?
So I talked about kind of what's happening in the brain, or at least the best theory that we have for what's happening in the brain already. But for NexStride in specific, essentially what we did is we took the most effective visual and auditory cues from research and combined them into a simple portable device that can attach onto any cane, walker, or walking pole. So the visual cue that we use is a green laser line projected onto the floor in front of you. The auditory cue is a metronome. So we put that laser line on the floor in front of you. We tell you to step over that green laser line or try and step to the beat of the metronome. And what that does is it changes the intention behind the movement. We're giving you this goal, and that changes the intention behind the movement. That changes the part of the brain that's being activated, and it allows someone to be able to initiate movement, to start walking again. So these cues, as I mentioned, lots of research behind this. These exact cues, a laser line and a metronome, have been shown to reduce falls by 40% for people with Parkinson's, reduce the frequency of freezing of gait episodes from coming on by 43%, and reduce the duration of freezing of gait episodes by 69%. So as I mentioned, lots of research behind this. We didn't just make this up. This is a well understood and well researched technology that we just made portable and accessible for people.
Can you tell me more about like the development of the device and maybe the different iterations and how you kind of went from, an idea to an actual physical device and how that device itself changed?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned that the first device that we made for Jack, first of all, it was huge. It was like, I don't know if I can even like show you an example, but yeah, it was really big. It was really just a prototype, of like, okay, can we just show that this works for him? So we went through a lot of iterations with Jack of both the functionality and the aesthetic of what he wanted, because it was important not only that it attached onto different canes, walkers, and walking poles. So we started at first, when we were first building this product, because that was one of the main things that we wanted to make sure we got right, we started looking at I bought all sorts of bike mounts because that was another example of something that attaches onto like a pole-like structure on a bike and needs to be secure, right? Because the bike's going to be moving around. Same thing, a cane or walker is going to be moving around. So I have all sorts of like 15 different like bike mounts at my office that I was looking at when we were first developing this product. And then we just kept kind of iterating with Jack. And then when Jack brought us to the support group or brought me to the support group, we formed this little like beta tester advisory group council that we would kind of every time we had new iterations, we take it to this group of like 10 people in the community, 10 people with Parkinson's who had freezing of gait in the community and say like, okay, what do you think about this? And then they would take it home for a week, try it out, bring it back to us and say, okay, can't figure out how to charge it. Or, sometimes I have trouble clicking this button. Can we make the button bigger? Just like things like that it's hard to think of what's going to go wrong when you're creating it. But when you give it to someone who didn't create it to use, you start to get all this feedback of what to change. So it was a super iterative process. We found some incredible people in SLO who were willing to give us the time to really give us really detailed feedback and kind of create the product with us, which was such a fun experience and I think really valuable.
And what was your team like, and kind of the different stages of development, and how did you bring it to a larger market?
So the first iteration of this product, first iteration, like going out to market of this product, we really just put together like kind of a hodgepodge of different engineers. Like we needed a manufacturing engineer, we needed an electrical engineer, we needed an industrial engineer. I can't remember what I said already. Industrial designer. Like we needed a bunch of different people to come together and work on this. But we were a small company that was just getting started, didn't have a whole lot of budget. And so we really just kind of like used people part-time and we got everyone together in a room once a week. And it was super fun. And I'm so, so grateful for those engineers who gave me, a couple hours a week to work on this project with me. But we got it all figured out and designed for manufacturing. And at this point, we have more people full-time in the company, but I was super lucky to be able to kind of raise some money from angel investors, people who really cared about getting this product out on the market. And, we really wouldn't have been able to do it without them investing their money in this project and getting the product out to market.
So what are the main differences between the first device that went to market and the current iteration of the device?
Really, the major differences are in the actual manufacturing process rather than something that you would experience. We make the device smaller, we make it easier to use, that sort of thing. The main changes are the ease of manufacturing, which just makes it a lot easier to scale up for us. So those are the bigger changes that we made.
Can you tell us some success stories of people that have used your device?
Yeah, one of my favorite stories is we work with this occupational therapist named Carol Chang, and she's in Florida. She does a great job. And she was testing out our product. I think we had given her a demo just to kind of use and get her feedback. And there was a person with Parkinson's that she was working with who had pretty bad freezing. And she had put down, before getting NexStride, she had put down these lines of painter's tape all over his house so that he could walk around the house and get from like the bathroom to the bedroom, whatever. And that worked okay, but it wasn't ideal. He had this beautiful hardwood floor. She felt bad putting down the painter's tape everywhere. And then it would always get ripped up and she'd have to put new tape down. So it worked okay, but it wasn't the best solution. But what I love about this story is that, he was able to walk around his house, but he couldn't put painter's tape everywhere. He lived a block away from the beach and he hadn't been to the beach in 3 years. He hadn't walked to the beach. And then we put the NexStride on his walker. Carol put the NexStride on his walker and he was able to walk to the beach for the first time in 3 years. And that is one of my favorite stories. And we have this great video of Carol walking with him that just warms my heart. It just makes me so happy that we were able to help him do that. There's another I'll just mention David, because he put some great videos up for us he has a YouTube channel, and he put some great videos up of him walking with versus without the NexStride that I think really show the impact of the product for people.
And how many people currently have this product, and what are your plans for bringing it to a wider audience or to more people living with Parkinson's?
So we right now are available in 7 countries, including the US. We have on the realm of thousands of people who are using the product. We're in over, I think, 150 clinics, including like the Muhammad Ali Center and Cleveland Clinic, all of these amazing hospitals. Bellevue Hospital, we did a case study with them. We've started to work with senior living facilities and assisted living communities, which has been amazing. We have a couple case studies with River Spring Living in New York, with Holland Home, and we're working on a couple more now. So that has been really great in working with them. And I think the biggest area for growth for us right now that we're focused on is really getting this product out into the communities, like assisted living and senior living communities. And the reason that's so interesting for us is we can go out to it. Like the hardest thing for us in getting this product out to the people who need it is it takes a lot of like marketing education, and any person that has any direct to consumer company knows that that's expensive to do, is to go out and do ads and whatever. Like, how do we get people to know about this, that this can impact them? And the education of like, maybe they know they have freezing of gait, but they don't know what visual and auditory cues are, so they don't know how to find it. But when we partner with these communities, their staff is really motivated to get the best products for the people who are living there. So we're able to go and educate a big group of people around what our product is and how it might be able to help. And those communities can even provide them for people free of cost, which is another barrier that we can kind of take away for people. So that's what we're focusing on right now for growth. We really want to make sure that people who need this product can get access to it no matter what their financial situation is, right? And cost isn't a barrier for them.
Yeah, we'll provide some links to your website in the description of our podcast so that people can learn more about this product. So looking ahead, are there any other products on the horizon? Any future changes to NexStride that you're thinking about making? What does the future look like for Oro devices?
Honestly, the biggest thing for us is that we've been working on for a while is being able to make sure that that people who have these these products, the NexStride products, that this can now help them and their medical professional that they're working with, whether that's a physical therapist or their primary care provider or their neurologist, help track their improvement, help track what's happening with their walking. Are they getting slower? Are they getting faster? Are they walking more? Are they walking less? So that it can help give them all the information they need to get better treatment.
Are most people finding this device through their physical therapist then, or through word of mouth, or through various healthcare organizations and locations and things like that? How are people currently finding NexStride?
I think all of the above. We get people who hear about us from their physical therapists. We get people who hear about us from webinars like this, or podcasts like this. We get people who are just online searching, what can I do about freezing of gait? Is there anything out there? So just Google search is another one. A lot of times we have family members of people with Parkinson's who are searching for products and educating their family members about what's out there. So all of the above.
So is there anything that I've forgotten to ask, or that you would like to say about this product, or about freezing of gait, or any of the issues that we've talked about?
There is one thing that I should mention. I absolutely love this organization that we work with that helps provide products for people free of charge. It's called the Parkinsons Wellness Fund. So we've partnered with them. They provide NexStrides free of charge for people who need financial assistance. And their whole purpose is to be able to help people with Parkinson's and their families with the financial burden of Parkinson's. And so they have a fund that will cover costs from co-pays to rock steady boxing classes to products that you might need. So we partner with them and they cover NexStrides free of charge for people who need financial assistance, but they'll cover all sorts of other products and services and anything really, any cost related to Parkinson's. So I always tell people about that super great organization. And I think they do a lot of good in the Parkinson's space.
Fantastic. Yeah. We'll share a link also to connect people with their website as well. All righty. Well, any other last thoughts?
The only other thing that I would say is if anybody has any questions about how this works or questions about mobility in general, I really care about making sure that people have access to the products and services that they need. And there's a lot of technology being built that I think everybody should know about, because, this might not be a good fit for you, but there might be, Speech Vibe is another great product that for people with Parkinson's that people might not know about, so making sure that everybody knows about the technology that's being built for this community to make your life easier.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the Parkinsons podcast, and I just wish you the best of luck with NexStride and Oro devices.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Parkinsons podcast. For more information about the Davis-Phinney Foundation and to learn about educational offerings and community events for people affected by Parkinson's, please visit davisfinneyfoundation.org or dpf.org. This podcast includes information about Parkinson's and insights from our Parkinson's community. It is not intended as a substitute for treatment advice from your own medical providers.